I was 3 years old when my parents broke up. They were never married, and for the next year or so, I was caught in the crossfire of a custody battle. During that time, I would go as long as 8 months without seeing my dad, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor that left his future as uncertain as he and I's relationship, especially as my mom married another man. Shortly after the wedding, my mom's husband legally adopted me. A new dad and a new last name is asking a lot of a 4-year-old. Oh, and little did I know, I wouldn't see my dad again till I was 13. Before I turned 7, they had a son, my little brother Jacob. Now, Jacob wasn't the problem, I was the problem. Or at least that's what I believed. You see, to say my mom's husband favored Jacob would be an understatement of biblical proportions. And so I felt less than. I felt like a loser. I felt like a victim. A mindset I'd adopt for more than 20 years. Is it any wonder why kids today struggle with life's adversities? Their story keeps them stuck. Their lens of the future is clouded by the colors of their past. Instead of a map leading them where they want to go, all they have are memories of what they know. But what if such a map existed? What if your future was as clear as the day is long? What if you had the power to change your story? A story where you're the hero instead of the victim. A story where you could take life's adversities and use them to your advantage. 10 minutes from now, you're going to walk out of here with that power. And when you do, get ready. Because when you change your story, listen to me very carefully. When you change your story, you change your life. But there's only one problem, and its name is victim's mindset. What makes this problem especially devious is it's nearly impossible to get away from. It lives on the news, especially during election season, social media, and even advertising. And the messaging is always the same. The world's on fire, we're doomed, and there's not a thing you can do about it because you're a loser, you're a victim, and I could go on and on. The result? Endless amounts of anxiety and depression, or worse, right? It's not right, but it is true. You know what else is true? Life is short. You kids don't deserve to suffer from anxiety or depression. And you sure as heck don't deserve to be yet another victim. Why? Well, what's the role of the victim in any story? Make the hero look good, make the villain look bad. That's it. And call me crazy, but I refuse to believe that God would have sent his only son on a suicide mission to die for your sins and mine if he thought that you were a loser. You're not a loser. He's got big plans for you. How do I know that? When I was 11 in 5th grade, our teacher, Mr. Schmitz, said, take out a piece of loose leaf and for the next 45 minutes just write a story. Whatever comes to you. Now, yours truly had never written a story before in his life, but as I said, God has a plan. And so I took to that like a moth to a flame. 45 minutes went by, I turned in my story to Mr. Schmitz, and I sat there watching her read my story line by line. Sooner or later, her shoulders start to bounce. She wipes tears from her eyes, and she says, it's just so funny. Now, you can imagine the power I felt in that moment. 5th grade boy just made a grown cry. Now, you might be thinking, I bet you went all in on that writing thing, huh? No. Well, why not? I took one look at my buddies. They were 3 sports stars, athletic studs. I stood in front of the goalie net praying the ball wouldn't get past me. They had all the girls. I had a binder full of Pokemon cards. And so I felt less than. I felt like a loser. I felt like a victim. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. I'm not sure how can we relate to this guy talking about adversity and victimhood with some 5th grade sob story. I mean, look at him, he's dressed in a 3-piece suit for crying out loud. Now, I get it. Believe me, I get it. These aren't just tattoos. They're covers for self-inflicted pain. Because when I got to be your age, I didn't know how to handle real adversity. Too many days after school, I'd come home, lock myself in my closet, straighten out the hook on one of our wire clothes hangers, and why? Remember what I said about my dad and I not being reunited again until I was 13? Well, Less than a year later, he and I's future and our relationship were more uncertain than ever. It was a Monday night, September 5th, 2005 to be exact, just my second week in high school, and he was fading fast. He'd been on hospice for about 90 days at that point, which sucked. And what really sucked is I could still hear him breathing. It sounded like sandpaper coated his throat and some sadistic soul was striking matches against it. As I said, he was fading fast. I'd be surprised if he made it past midnight, the hospice nurse said, looking at me. I thought, yeah, right. My dad's not going anywhere. You do realize he and I were reunited less than a year ago? And then 2 yellow cones of light swept through the living room as my mom pulled into the driveway. When she dimmed the headlights, I pushed myself to a stand around the edge of my dad's bed, gave him a kiss on the forehead, and said, I love you. When I was halfway out the front door, I flung a look over my shoulder, saying, I'll see you tomorrow. My phone rang an hour later. Hunter, your dad is gone. I share that story with you not for your sympathy. I share that story with you because I want you to know if you're struggling with adversity, if you're feeling like a victim, I want you to know I feel your pain. And I want you to know that even though your story might not make sense at times, God has a plan for you. How do I know that? Because I go the next 20 years before realizing I had that power. And let me tell you something. Buying into the victim's mindset might pay off in the short term. Heck, might even be fun. But there'll come a day or night when it's not so much fun anymore. Bass. I could hear bass. The kind of bass that gets your blood pumping. The kind of bass that gets your heart thumping. The kind of bass that makes you see sounds when you're up to your eyes in acid, cocaine, booze, and God only knows what else I was on back then. One night, in my late 20s, after building a very successful business off the back of the victim's mindset, a couple buddies of mine were at a club downtown during the hours God should have never made, and I remember the VIP booth I had bought for us that evening. I remember the reserved for Hunter Charneski sign on the drinks table in front of us. I remember God whispering in my ear saying, what's going on, player? Looks like this victim's mindset has gotten you all the success you wanted and then some. Isn't this fun? Now, I am not that guy who's going to come up here and preach to you about money being a bad thing, which is why I'm so disappointed with some of our leaders in office, because they make beautiful, young, innocent people like you think money is a bad thing. Money is not a bad thing. Money is a good thing when used for good. If you tell me you want to be a billionaire and go off and change your family tree forever, I will be the first person to tell you, you go do it. Now back to the story. That's when it hit me. Oh, I keeled over as if life itself had struck me with an awful and sudden blow. And perhaps it did, because I swear to you, it felt like my organs stopped working. Panicked, I fished my phone from my pocket and dialed my ex-girlfriend. Hello? She said. At first I didn't answer, not because I didn't want to, because I couldn't. I had a freeze-frame image in my mind of that little boy in Mrs. Schmitz's class who I had stuffed down into the cellar of my soul, and he was rattling the bars of his cage, begging to be let out. Hunter, she said. Hello? At this point, tears were cutting trails down my face. I had just said, this isn't fun anymore. So yeah, like I said, buying into the victim's mindset doesn't end well. That was over 5 years ago. What happened next? Long story short, after I get my butt kicked between here and Phoenix, Arizona and back, and from here to Scotland and back, losing friends, checking into therapy, and being this close to eating a bullet, I changed my story. And when you change your story, you change your life. Which begs the question, how's it work? Very simple. Put God first. Go all in. Run your race. Put God first. I used to sell life insurance. I was really good at it too. When I was smiling down, 300 cold calls a day was just another day. Until the day Mr. Jones picked up the phone. At first, what I thought was going to be a one-call close ended up being a 6-hour conversation with a complete stranger. Now you might be wondering, what on earth could you have been talking about? Well, it turns out nothing on earth. Mr. Jones gave me a masterclass on God that day, and I'm not convinced he wasn't God. I mean, the guy sounded exactly like Morgan Freeman in the movie Bruce Almighty. And maybe he was, because I poured out everything to this guy, my hopes, my dreams, all the good I wanted to do in this world. And you want to know what he said to me? Put God first, or you will lose everything. Now, God, like Mr. Jones and I, up until that point, yeah, we were complete strangers. Until I made the decision to put God first. And for me, it is as simple as this. I read a chapter of the Bible every single day. You start doing that day after day after day, God's going to start showing up in here, and here, and out here. And ever since I've done that, my life has gotten better. Why? Well, let me ask you. Who are you more likely to help? A stranger or somebody you know? God and I are no longer strangers. And I'm going to quote Ed Milet here by saying, I don't expect you to share my faith, but I do hope you share my belief, because here's the deal. Just because you make the decision to change your story doesn't mean you can do it alone. Would Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, or Luke Skywalker have been able to do it on their own? No. They had Hagrid, Haymitch, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, didn't they? Victims do it alone. Heroes do it with a guide. And what better guide than God? So put God first. 2, go all in. Newsflash, you have a gift. Whether it's painting, singing, a great business mind, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Somebody put their arm around you at some point and said, you have a gift. But here's what they might not have told you. It's not yours. It's your gift to give. And once you figure that out, go all in. Because I'm a living, breathing example of this. Ask my wife. You will never go broke using your gift as a beacon of hope for those who are broken. And speaking of, when you see somebody using your gift to put themselves back together, those moments are worth far more than money. It was July 4th of 2020, and my phone buzzes. It's my friend Hannah from high school. She says, did you see Jade's post? Now, Jade was my very best friend in high school who was there for me every single day after my dad died. So I said, no. I went over to the gram, and my heart dropped faster than the phone from my hand. Jade's husband had overdosed on heroin the night before, leaving her with a 10-month-old, Andre, to raise on her own. Hannah said, we're putting together a GoFundMe. Anything you can do would be helpful. Remember I said about God having a plan? Well, that dude must have been winding up since I was 11 years old in Mr. Smith's class, because on that day, he threw a lightning bolt of an idea down that struck me, and I knew then and there I was going to write Jade a story of how she was there for me during my life's greatest adversity, and then I would call the reader to take action, to be there for her and Andre's life's greatest adversity. God gave me the wisdom to wield words into a weapon to be a force for good. He gave me the courage to go all in on my gift of writing. He gave me the audacity to take my life's greatest adversity and use it to my advantage to help my friend put herself back together again. They had a $5,000 goal. By the grace of God, those 800 words I wrote Jade generated more than $25,000 inside of 1 week. In that moment, I changed my story. And when you change your story, you change your life. You have a gift. It's waiting. People are wanting you to share it with them. Go all in. 3, run your race. Remember I said about life being short? Well, as my favorite author, Stephen Pressfield, once said, life is also long. And he ought to know. The dude didn't have his first book published until he was 54. What does that have to do with anything? February 17th was my last indoor meet of the season over at Grand Valley. I know I don't look like it, but I am a sprinter. And I was fixing to crush all-time PR in the 400 meter that day, if not win. First half of the race, I'm nipping at the heels of this young man from Hope College. My pace is perfect. Then comes the final turn. I hear the roar of the crowd because he and I are neck and neck, and I make a costly error. There's a point in the 400 meter where you kick towards the end, you give it all you got. I kicked about 20 meters too early. Why? Because I was racing the young man from Hope instead of running my race. The result, I did run an all-time PR that day, but instead of winning, which I should have, I took 3rd. So what am I trying to say? When we focus, compete, or compare ourselves to others, we're already victims. When we pay too much attention to adversity, we lose the chance to use it to our advantage. When we focus on getting as a result of our gift, as opposed to unconditionally giving, we lose the power to change our story. God has a plan for you, and it ends with a win, trust me. But until that day comes, keep your head down, be patient, and run your race. My mom has a saying. She told me once, we can't rewrite what's already been written, but we can start a new chapter today. You kids don't deserve to be victims. You deserve to be heroes. And God knows we need you now more than ever. you still hold the pen. So get out there and start that new chapter today. And if you do, it'll be you on the stage instead of me someday, using your gift as a beacon of hope and inspiration for the next generation. It'll be you telling them they have the power to change their story. It'll be you telling them in order to take their life's adversities and use it to their advantage, they have to put God first, go all in, and run your race. Because when you change your story, you change your life.